having faith in yourself and in your body. Don't overlook that feeling. Like I think that feeling says something. Like, you're doing this because you love it. Don't forget that.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Dance Mind Wellness Podcast. Today, I have a really special guest, the Busy Bunhead, and she has a platform that is really awesome because it's dedicated to supporting and celebrating adult ballet dancers all around the world. And she has podcasts, blog posts, her own clothing brand. As you guys should go check it out. I'll link it down in the description. And she's really passionate about making adult ballet dancers having resources that they need and for their journey to be more connected and accessible. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I'm so excited to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. Usually I'm on your side of the podcast hosting, so it's fun to be interviewed.
Yeah,
So thank you.
I'm so excited. To start off, you have a amazing platform, like I said, the Busy Bunhead, and I just wanted to say it takes so much courage to start something like that, and especially as your journey with starting ballet late, I think it's like really inspirational, and I kind of want to know what inspired you to make your platform and your journey with ballet.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. Yeah, I think for me, with wanting to do the platform and specifically the website, I just remember when I was getting more serious about my own training as an adult, there was pretty good amount of information online. It was just very spread out. And so one of the things that I wanted to try to do that I felt like I couldn't really find was try to centralize information. And I love a good website that has, fun blog posts and is aesthetic and has a lot of resources on it. And I hadn't seen anything like that for adult ballet. And there's so much happening in the adult ballet world that I was like, you know what, why don't I just try to create something? So really it just came from wanting to create the thing that I was looking for and couldn't find. And it's just been really fun. It kind of brings together a lot of things that I love to do. I really enjoy writing, I enjoy photography. It's just been a really fun creative endeavor. So, yeah, thank you so much for your kind words.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think also like for me when I started late too, it was like really hard to find like different like stuff that I needed to know before starting, and I think like what you have is really cool. Can you share a little bit about like your journey in ballet? Like when did you start and like how did you really hone in on that passion?
Yeah, so I started initially when I was 13. I just I don't even honestly remember what started it or what sparked the idea, but I just decided that I wanted to try ballet. And I didn't have anyone in my family who was a ballet dancer. And so I didn't realize that 13 was really late. And so I just started taking classes at a local studio. And when we initially came in to book my classes, very quickly realized, that I was going to be much older than the rest of the kids in my class. They put me in a class with like 7 or 8 year olds because I had never taken any dance before, which like I definitely understand it, but I think as a teenager, it was difficult to be in a class with students that young. And so I did that for probably, I think about 6 months. And then I just wasn't I love ballet, but it just didn't feel like the right fit for me as far as the studio and the learning environment. I was also a competitive horseback rider at the time, so it was really hard to do both because similar to ballet, that is kind of an all-consuming sport. I owned horses, and so it was like every day I was at the barn and practicing and doing competitions on the weekends, and so there wasn't a lot of time to really jump into ballet full on the way I would need to at that age if I had really wanted to go for it, especially because I was starting late. So after that, I didn't really come back to ballet until my 20s. I had gotten really heavily into salsa dancing and was performing and teaching and doing that. And I just was wanting another way to support my salsa training and thought, be great to get back into a ballet class. And so I started looking around and I found one studio where I live that was doing an open adult ballet class that wasn't with like a bunch of professional dancers. It was like a more beginner, chill kind of introduction to ballet, learning the terminology, starting at the beginning. And that was the only class that I had found like it at the time. And so I felt really lucky that that class worked for me. It was on Saturday mornings. And so I would go to that most weekends, but it was a little bit spotty. And then it really was during the pandemic, during lockdown, that I got a lot more serious about ballet. And I found Catherine Morgan's YouTube
Mm,
channel online and her classes. And as I'm sure you know, like she's just been a very big advocate for adult dancers and really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that like this was something that I could do as an adult and get a lot of joy and value out of doing. And so that was kind of when I really dove in headfirst. And she was also the first person that exposed me to the idea of like even an adult being able to go on point. And so yeah, that was kind of when I really started to take ballet seriously was during the pandemic. So and I've
mm.
been doing it ever since.
That's so beautiful, and I love how, like, you even though you started late and you quit for some time, you still came back to it, and this, like, led to a really amazing passion and a really inspiring journey, and I think, like, also, like, I think I started ballet also late, like, around 13 or maybe 14, but I also, like, felt the same way as you, like, I'm so behind, and I think that's, like, a really big problem in the ballet world, and I think the resources that you have, like the blog posts and all your resources, just kind of help with that. And I kind of wanted to ask, like many like of my listeners feel when they feel like they are behind in ballet or they started too late. What do you recommend telling them, or like what would you say to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think, um, it can be hard with ballet because I think sometimes if you're in a studio environment where it's like a kid's studio,
Mhm.
starting late is gonna feel weird, and then also if you're surrounded by people that maybe aren't familiar with ballet, like, I know sometimes in my 20s and 30s, people are like, "You do ballet? That's kinda weird." But I think the thing that I, would say to people starting late is if it brings you joy, it's not silly. Like, it's not a waste of time to do something that really brings you a lot of joy and fills your cup, and I think that's one of the things I love so much about the adult ballet community is just seeing so many other adults like me who ballet just brings them so much happiness and joy and you're moving your body, you're building strength, like it's great for you, it's great for your mind. And so I think if you're feeling like starting, it's like, oh, is this a waste of time? Is this silly? Should I even bother? It's like if you love it and there's something about ballet that really speaks to you, that maybe like for me, I did it as a kid and it was kind of always this thing in the back of my mind, even in that long break, between when I was 13 and mid 20s. It was always something that I would go to the ballet and watch it or watch it on YouTube and just like my heart would just feel so pulled to it. And so, don't overlook that feeling. Like I think that feeling says something and there's a reason that you feel that way. And so just do it for yourself if for no other reason.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and thank you for saying that. I think ballet has like so much to offer, so much joy and so much happiness, like you said. And I think what I hear from myself and from other people is that sometimes they're so focused on becoming perfect and trying to, like rush to improve. But
Yeah.
how were you able to like ignore those thoughts and really be able to hone in on how much you love this art and how much it supports your mental health and well-being?
Yeah, that one is hard and something that I'm still definitely some days are better than others, because I also feel that, um, pressure that I put on myself and that desire to just want so badly to progress and to be better than I am or to move faster. So that one is is a work in progress for me. But I think for me, the biggest thing, like if I do start to get discouraged or feel like, "Oh, I'm not progressing as quickly as I want, or, my technique isn't as good as I would like it to be." I think the thing that always helps me is shifting to gratitude and just focusing on being thankful for what my body can do. I think as we get older, like I'm 37, gonna be 38 soon. And so, you just kind of have an awareness of like your body is you can get injured. Like I threw my back out a couple years ago. I've had ankle injuries and different things. And like I think you just become more aware of what a gift it is to be able to move and to just yeah, enjoy the art of dancing. And so I think I always just try to bring it back to gratitude, and rather than focusing on the things that I can't do yet or where I'm not, just focusing on being grateful for the fact that like my body is showing up for me in class and doing these really amazing things. I think especially with point work, that's been something that I've just been so amazed and thankful to my body that it's been able to support me doing something that has been kind of a lifelong dream of wanting to be on point. And so I think that that's it for me, is just like gratitude. I think gratitude is always very grounding, even when we start to feel discouraged.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I definitely like how you said how, like, when you're injured, you kind of you kind of feel more grateful when you are injured because you realize what you are able to do. And I think I definitely saw that in myself, like in my summer intensive when I injured my ankle a little bit. I was like, oh wow, like I'm actually so grateful that when I wasn't injured I was actually able to dance, and sometimes I forgot about that. And I think that's a good thing to remember. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for saying that. That's like such a good reminder. And um was there any mindset that helped you shift from self doubt when you were 13 to self trust in your dance journey?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is like I'm so inspired by seeing other adults and what they're doing. And so that I think is what has helped me with a lot of my own self-doubt, is seeing other adults doing it and seeing them achieve these amazing things. Like that's one of the things I love about social media. I know I know social media has its downfalls and it gets a lot of hate, but I think one of the beautiful things about social media, specifically within the adult ballet world, is it's a very positive space, and you get to really be inspired by what other people are achieving even as adults. And so that for me has probably been the biggest source of overcoming even like my own doubt of like what my body maybe is capable of or what I'm capable of achieving as an adult. It's like seeing these other people that are doing things where I'm like, "Oh man, they can do it. Maybe I can do it too."
Yeah, that's really amazing. And also, I think going to an in person ballet class also really helps because you get to meet people and like share your passion, which I feel like really helps me. And you can share a little bit, and they can always, bring some encouragement to your journey. So that's also a really good reminder to really be also grateful for the people around you as a source
Totally.
of information. And I wanted to ask, like, with dancing in, you said you found your passion in quarantine, and I think that's like really rare because all of my friends in my ballet studio, they told me like they hated ballet in quarantine because they're all by themselves. And I wanted to ask, like, how did you find motivation to train and to do ballet when you were all by yourself, which I think is so amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it was actually funny because during the pandemic, I was in me and my husband were living with family, and so there was actually 10 of us in the
Oh
house during
wow.
the quarantine, and so it was so funny. I feel like I had such a different pandemic experience than so many people that were maybe, like, either completely alone or only with a couple people. It was like my house was totally full, and we luckily, where we lived at the time, we had a home gym set
Oh
up, and
wow.
we would literally have to communicate within the family of like, okay, I need the gym from 1 to 2 because I'm taking a Zoom ballet class, and I need it from 2 to 3 because I'm taking a Zoom whatever class. So that for me was one of the big sources of motivation, actually, was that I would book into Zoom classes that were happening like at a specific time, because I think for me, just in general, even to this day, it's a little more challenging for me to do classes like a YouTube class or something and just kind of say, oh, okay, I'll do it at some point today when I have time. I find that it's much easier to stay motivated for a class that's happening at a specific time. And so I took a lot of Zoom classes with Catherine Morgan during the pandemic. And, I think it was also too, there wasn't a lot of other things going on because we were locked down. And so I was able to really dedicate the time and energy to getting back into ballet and like getting, just familiar with steps and practicing a lot. And so I'm grateful that that was kind of the time in which I jumped back in, because I had a little bit more time than normal to really go for it. But yeah, I think for staying motivated, definitely having those Zoom classes was very helpful. And then again, like seeing all the other adult ballet dancers that were logging on. I think at some points the Zoom classes with Catherine Morgan, there'd be like 60 people on the
Oh,
class. And so
wow.
seeing all these other adults literally around the world that we're all logging on to do ballet together was very motivating and inspiring.
Yeah, I really like that. How you shared that, like being with a group of people
Yeah.
also really helps too, which I think it's like really important to have. And it sounds like dance really became your form of self care, rather something that you had pressure on. And I think for like at least for teenagers, like we we have this pressure on ourselves to become perfect and to perform at our peak, but sometimes we don't know how to use it as a form of self care. And would you say that to use ballet as a self care, would you say that that you need to have a mindset, or is it more how you take care of your body or like how you are dancing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I think it's definitely mindset, and like I have so much respect and admiration for the teens who are training in ballet, because I do think it's really hard because there's a different level of pressure just purely because being a professional in like a traditional sense is still a viable option. And so there's just built-in pressure because of that. And I think one of the kind of blessings in disguise of being an adult dancer is that in some ways, because the traditional paths to like joining a company aren't really an option for us yet. Maybe that'll change
Right.
someday, but as of right
Yeah.
now, it's not really an option. It in some ways is nice because it does take a little bit of the pressure off. And so I think it maybe that in and of itself makes it a little bit easier for ballet to be self-care versus something pressure packed, just because of that. But I think, yeah, for me, it's definitely both. It's like a chosen mentality because, like I mentioned earlier, I have days where it's harder than others to not get caught up in like a perfectionistic, pressure packed mindset and to remind myself, like, you're doing this because you love it. Don't forget that. So I have to remind myself that too. But I think also, too, even just as an adult with, the effects of your body aging and changing, I do also have to take physical steps to make it self-care. I have to be a lot more intentional about things like icing and foam rolling and making sure that I'm resting. And, I think sometimes that can feel like an inconvenience, but I do think it has, going back to gratitude, like it has
Mhm.
made me really grateful for what my body can do. Cause I think sometimes when you have to slow down and take care of it more intentionally, it makes you more aware and more grateful. At least it has for me. So yeah, it's definitely the self-care aspect is definitely mental and physical for me.
Wow, that's so amazing, and that's what I truly like admire about adult ballet dancers is that they they like work so hard, and but they work hard for themselves. Like they're not like doing it to please anyone. They truly just love ballet, and I think that's a really good reminder for anyone, whether they're an adult ballet dancer or like a teen dancer, where like ballet doesn't have to be just, oh, you need to do this because you need to please a teacher, or you need to please people, but it's a really good form of self-care and self-love. So I think that's a really good reminder, and I'll definitely keep that in my head when I the next time I have class. Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned how like as an adult ballet dancer, you have to take care of your body. And I think it's so cool how you started point. Especially, I do know when I do take drop-in classes, sometimes I see them take point, and I think it's like so cool. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into it, and like if a person that started late, no matter how old they are, if they wanted to start point, would you give them any advice?
Yeah, it's been so fun. It's it's been fun and really hard. I was just taking point class earlier today
Oh,
before we jumped on this Zoom call, and, some days you're like, "This is so fun," and some days you're like, "This is so frustrating and hard."
yeah.
But it's been a really awesome part of the journey. I did ballet. I was doing it consistently, like, multiple times a week for, I think, about 2 years before I was like, "You know what? I wanna do point." I had wanted to, but I was kind of waffling and going back and
Yeah.
forth and was like, "I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Point shoes are really expensive," all the
Yes.
things, and I just had this I can't even remember. I kind of wish I could remember what it was exactly, but I just remember on one particular day, I still remember where I was. I was, like, driving in the car and just thinking, "If you don't do this now, you're like time is just passing, and it's not going to get any easier the longer you wait. And so just do it. Like you have to just do it or you're always going to wonder because I knew for me if I didn't, it was always going to be something that I would probably regret not trying. And I know not all adult dancers feel that way. Some adults that I dance with are like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like I don't need to do point. It's not a dream for them and like that's totally fine. But I think if it is a dream for you and it's something that you've kind of always wondered about, I think just go for it. Like
Yeah.
as long as your body can support it and, it's important obviously to make sure that your teacher thinks you're ready. Like I had a teacher who gave me clearance to do it and was like, "Yes, you're ready for this." And then also of course to get a professional fitting, that's really important. So I think as long as you're doing it with support around you and professionals around you and it's something that you've really dreamed of doing and want to do, I say I go for it. I think you totally should. And I think like I said, it can be very challenging and hard, but if it's a dream, that's also part of what helps you get through those humps. There's definitely been a couple times where I'm just like, "It's not worth it," and then I'm like, "No, it is. It definitely
Yes.
is."
It's worth
So,
all the toenails.
yeah, you just have to yeah, exactly. It's worth all the bunion pain and
Yes, the
the
money.
hurt toenails and the blisters and,
Yes.
whatever, but yeah, I think if it's worth it to you, then do it, and yeah, just make sure you have good teachers. I think for adults, the learning process with point tends to be a little bit different because there's this is a generalization, but I feel this way, and a lot of adults I've talked to feel this way, that, like, there tends to be a little bit more fear when you're older just because that awareness of what it feels like to be injured. Most adults by the time they're in their 30s or 40s have had some sort of injury, whether it's like a car accident or, something totally unrelated to dance, like they've been
Mhm.
injured, and so they know the pain and the recovery time associated with it. And so I think adults tend to be a little more timid and a little more cautious on point. And so I think it's so important to find teachers that understand the nuances of working with adult dancers because I think it's very different than working with younger kids. I know for a lot of studios, maybe kids will start point around 11, 12, 13, and I remember being that age and being a little more fearless and like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, let's go for it." And, starting in my 30s, I think I was 33 or 34 when I started point, and I was like, "I'm kinda scared."
Yes.
Like, "I wanna do this, but I'm kinda scared."
Yes.
So, finding teachers that are understanding of that and have the patience to help you work through the mental aspect as much as the physical aspect, I think is really important for adults. So I would
Mhm.
definitely say that to any adult who's considering going on point, like finding a good teacher who works specifically with adults, not just kids, because it's different.
Yeah, and even me, when I've been on point for some time, I'm, like, still terrified of doing a pirouette sometimes. I'm just like, "I just have
Yeah.
to go for it." Yeah,
Yeah.
and point is definitely so mental. Like, yes, it does cause some physical strain with your toes, but, like, it's so mental,
So
and
mental.
I think also, like, at least for my experience, I think dancing on point does get better because you learn how to face, well, maybe not face the fear, but you learn how to just kind of just minimize the fear, and also learn what shoes hurt the most and what shoes don't hurt that much. Because I know, like, the first pair of shoes I got, it was so painful, and now I have like a shoe that works for me. So I think it does get better. Less toenails break as
Yeah.
you go on. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like it's a journey. Point is
yeah,
really a journey, and I think you kind of have to think of it like that,
yeah,
that it's not just something that you start, and I think even it's different from some other things where there's like a more linear progression. I think for point, it tends to be a little more like you advance and then you might take a couple steps back and then you
yeah,
advance some more and then you have something happen with your shoes and
yes,
that, it's a little bit more non-linear than
yeah,
some other things. So you have to
yeah.
have that patience.
Yeah, because I think, like, with dancing on flat, you all you have is yourself, but then with dancing on point shoes, you have point shoes coming into the play, which is really hard, and which I also think why ballet is so mental, because you can't, like, if you're not doing well on point, like, maybe you have a day where you're just, like, not as strong on point, and sometimes I feel like it can be really hard to, like, blame yourself, but also we have to remember that, like, maybe it's our point shoes, maybe just our feet are just not used to the point shoes today,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just have off days,
Yeah.
I was talking to someone on my podcast a couple weeks
Oh,
ago about even how, for women, like, depending on, like, your cycle,
uh-huh.
like, when you're on your period, different things, like, there's so much happening biologically that, like, can affect your dancing, and so, yeah, I think even just giving yourself the grace of, like, sometimes you'll just have an off day, and that's just part of it. Some days you'll be like, "Why am I so much dizzier today when I'm turning?" And it's like it could be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting to know too. But I like how you have this mindset of, like, you have to be gentle with yourself, and I think it's a really good mindset that you need to have, especially when you start late. Because when I started late, I think I had a little bit of that, and that little part of myself being gentle really helped me keep going. So
Mm,
yeah.
that's
And you
good.
mentioned about, like, how you had some injuries, and I wanted to know because every time I have injuries, I get really discouraged. I'm like, "Oh my god, like, my progress is gonna, like, just go down and I'm not gonna improve at all." How do you, like, combat those thoughts and, like, really stay positive and stay in gratitude?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think, with injury, it is really hard, especially, most of us are doing ballet because we really love it, and
Mhm,
so when you're forced to take a break from it, it's really hard. It's like I always the times that I've had to take a more extended break, it's like I
mhm.
feel like a little part of myself is missing when I'm not able to go to ballet, and,
Yeah.
that part is really difficult, but I think one of the things I've learned because I the first time I had a pretty major injury when I threw my back out and I was out of ballet for over a month, that I was really worried about, like, "Oh, I'm gonna lose everything that I've gained," and I think, some of it as far as stamina and things like
Mhm,
that, yes, you will have to work back up, but I think with the mental side and the things you've learned, those things don't just, like, completely go away, it's not like you completely forget everything your teachers ever told you just because you're out for a little bit, so I think having a realistic understanding of what coming back is gonna look like, I think can make you less stressed out when you are injured. Like I know for me now, when things happen, whether I'm injured or even sometimes if I have to travel for work and I can't dance for a little bit, I don't get as stressed about, oh, I'm going to lose everything that I've learned because I think I just know at this point, like, yeah, the first couple classes, my body will need to adjust and get back into it. But I didn't lose everything that I've worked for up until this point. And so I think just like having faith in yourself and in your body that it will come back, and there will be an adjustment period, but you won't lose everything that you have gained up to that point.
yeah, that's a really good reminder, and I think what you're saying is that, like, the I think for what I need to remember from what you're saying is that, like, what we'll be losing is maybe stamina and some stuff, but those, like, will
Yeah,
come back really easily. So that's a really good reminder. And there's always like PTs, ballet teachers that can help us even strengthen that muscle even more before we're
yeah.
injured. So that's a really good reminder. And another question I had was, you said that you have to take breaks from ballet because of work. And I know a lot of adult ballet dancers, they're like working their full time job. And even me, like I'm a student too. So it's like, how do you have that balance where where you like keep that passion for ballet when you still have to do your like real life duties like school or work?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely I think I look at things now a little more seasonally, like,
Mhm.
there will be weeks where I don't get to dance as much as I wanted to, and then there will be
Mhm.
weeks where I get to dance a lot, and, like, not being as stressed about the times where I can't dance as much. I heard something a while ago and I love it and it's stuck with me so much and I like have to remind myself constantly that consistency will always beat intensity. And I think like in the long haul of my training, sometimes I have this mentality of if I'm not going at 100% all the time, then I'm not gonna ever achieve the things I wanna achieve, but I think I've been realizing, over the last couple years especially, that it's more about consistency over the long haul than it is about every single day needing to be this super intense training mode, because that's just not realistic for most adults, and yeah, like, if you're a student, you're gonna have days where you can't or even weeks where you can't. But I think it's more about the consistency over months and years and giving yourself that grace of like every single day doesn't have to be so intense and you can still achieve goals and still make the progress you want to make as long as you are putting in the work as much as you can, and as much as what's realistic in that season. And some seasons will look different than others. I've had times where I'm taking a bunch of class every week, and then I've had times where it's like I go a couple weeks and I maybe do one or two classes, and it's like, that's okay. I think it's sometimes it's not what I would want, but ultimately it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to progress or achieve my goals.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder. And I think like what it sounds like is that you have a really flexible mindset where like your classes don't always have to be one way, and your ballet training doesn't always have to look like this, but you're very flexible. And I think that's also a key way to have this positive mindset around ballet, especially starting late when you're really conscious about improving. So thank you for that. That was a really good reminder. And I have a closing question, which is for if there's an adult ballet dancer watching, or a teen, or if there's just like anyone that is too scared to start ballet, what would you tell them?
Oh man, so hard because there's like a million things I would want to say. I'm just like, you got this. You got it's so fun.
Yeah.
But I think like on a more serious note, I think that being afraid to be a beginner at like it takes a lot of courage to be a beginner at anything.
Mhm.
And I think the older you get, the scarier it is to put yourself back in the position of being a beginner because especially like, once we're a little bit older, we're working towards being proficient at things, and especially for adults, it's like you're probably in a career, you've been in set roles where you feel like you have some amount of, proficiency in them. And so I think putting yourself back in like a beginner mode or mindset is really scary. And so I think really giving yourself the kudos to like even be willing to go back to being a beginner, um, and that if you're scared, that's not silly or ridiculous. Like it's completely valid to be really afraid to go into a ballet class for the first time. Um, and I think on a more practical level, like one of the things that I always recommend when people ask me, or say, hey, I want to start taking ballet at a local studio. Do you have anything that you would recommend before I do that or as I'm getting ready? And I always tell people, like, I think such a great way to get ready for an in studio class is to do a couple of YouTube classes at home just to
Mhm.
build up the familiarity with the vocabulary and stuff. I think as an adult and like taking classes at studios and seeing people that are brand new to ballet walk into class for the first time, I think one of the things that's most overwhelming is the fact that like it's literally all in French. It's not even English. And so people come in, for the first time. I think once you've been taking ballet for a while, you kind of take for granted, like,
Yes.
what a tendu is. But for someone walking in, off the street, they're like, what the heck is a tendu?
Mhm.
So I always, just suggest that to people. Like, if you're looking for just like a really practical tip of like, I'm wanting to start ballet, what would you say? I would say, like, take a couple YouTube classes, even just watch them. Like, even if you don't want to physically do the movement, just like watch a ballet class on YouTube so you can see the flow of a class and like, oh, that's what a plie is, that's what a tendu is, because I think that that will make walking into your first class in a studio much less overwhelming, and you'll be navigating a lot less newness if you can just get a little familiarity. So that's always what I say to people, just in the hopes that maybe if they do come to a studio class, it'll be a better experience for them and maybe they're a little less overwhelmed. So
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really good. And I think adding to what you were saying is like they have like I think what's so good about your platform, the Busy Bunhead, the your website with all the resources, I think that if anyone is starting late, they should definitely go to your website because I feel like your website has all the resources that they need to get familiar with ballet. And overall, this podcast was really helpful for me, and I know it'll be really helpful for my listeners. And you gave really insightful answers that I know would really impact my viewers. And thank you for coming on to the podcast.
thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.